Izzy at Minerva. In today's video we're looking at how to create a pair of bespoke flared trousers based on our own body block. In front of me you're going to see my block as we do the demo today, but obviously at home you can do these techniques using your own block yourself. As usual with this series, you're going to need your standard pattern drafting tools, which are listed next to me here. If you're following along at home, don't forget to use a nice sharp pencil to keep everything as accurate as possible. I will be using fat marker pens just so you can see on the screen above exactly what I'm doing and follow along nice and clearly. Today I am wearing the Megan Nielsen Rowan top, which is made in a nice stretchy jersey fabric. We'll post that pattern below the video so that you can link to it and purchase it off our website if you'd like to. So in today's video I'm going to show you how to adapt your block using pattern drafting techniques, and then I'll also just show you how to sew up the trousers quickly so then you can see the end result. Now when you adapt your bespoke block, no matter how good the fit of your block is, you'll probably notice that when you change the block to make a different pattern and different style, the fit might need a little bit of tweaking. So we'd always recommend when you are doing this pattern drafting exercise to do a toile first, just to check that everything's sort of sitting the way you want it to before you make your final project out of your nice proper fabric. So let's go through the process together now. In front of me here I've got my back and my front trousers. We're going to work on the front trousers to start off with. So what we're trying to do with our trousers is basically we want to keep the shape up at the top, up at the hip. We're happy with that, but we want to kind of bring it in slightly at the knee just to create a bit more kind of a fitted aspect up at the top around the thigh. And then we want to kind of flare out towards the bottom to create these really cool flares. Now we're going to start off with the adaptation to the knee, and then we'll look at adding volume down to the bottom. This pattern drafting technique is not particularly tricky in terms of technique, but it is just a really nice little effective way of changing the shape of your trousers. So to start off with, just along the knee line, just bring in a point that is just 1 centimetre in of the side seam and 1 centimetre in along the knee line from the inner seam. So that's our first kind of reference point. Now the next thing we're going to do is to look at how much volume we want to add into the hem here, and this is going to create that really nice sort of flared fit look at the bottom of our trousers. Now depending on the amount of volume that you choose to add into the hemline, that's really going to have a significant impact on the silhouette of the trousers. So if we only add 3 or 5 centimetres, it's going to be almost like a boot cut kind of look, or an exaggerated boot cut. If we add more, it's going to be more dramatic. So it's completely up to you. That's kind of the area that you can play around with as you look at this technique. Okay, I'm just going to add 7 centimetres to either side of my hem. So I'm just going to mark a point along the hem that is 7 centimetres offset from the side seam there, and 7 centimetres offset from the inner seam at that point. Brilliant. What we're going to do now is just join up these lines with a nice curve. Now at the knee line here, we're then just going to square down 5 centimetres so that we're just dropping that knee line nice and straight by 5 centimetres. Do it on both sides of the seam. And then we literally just want to join that point down to the hem. We don't want to create too much of like a sharp angle here, so we'll just soften it as we get up to the top there. And same on the other side. You can see that shape is beginning to look really fun, isn't it? I'm just going to make sure that I make a note of this, that was 7 centimetres. So that we don't forget for the other side. And so this is the shape that we end up with for our front trouser. At this point, I'm just going to trace over that to create our pattern piece for our front trouser leg. I'm not going to add a seam allowance to the waist simply because I'm not doing a waistband or anything else at this stage. I'm just checking the fit, so I don't need to attach the waistband to anything else. If you're doing this at home, obviously, you can follow along and draft your own waistband using our videos from our skirt waistband tutorials, which are still relevant for the trousers. Let's add our 1.5 centimetre seam allowance to our side seam. No hem to our base of our trousers, simply because, again, it's just a toile and then a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance to the inner seam. And finally our seam allowance to our centre front. I'm just going to add our notches now to our knee line and also our hip line. Grain line follows this central line down here, running perpendicular to our knee line. Flared trouser, front trouser, cut 2. Excellent. Let's move on now and look at the adaptations that we need to make to our back trouser piece. Okay, so moving on to the back trouser pattern piece, we're just going to repeat exactly what we did for the front on the back. So mark a point along the knee line, which is 1 centimetre inset of the side seams. And at this point, you could just extend that down by 5 centimetres, just square that down from the knee line. Then just find a nice smooth curve to join that line up to the top of your trouser leg on both sides. Okay, and then down at the hem, we're just going to add in that 7 centimetres as we did for the front. It's always critical to add the same amount to both sides when we're doing this process. And then the other thing I'm going to do at the bottom, we have got a bit of a curve down here. So I'm just going to straighten that off because we've got a lot of volume happening around here. So that little curve is just going to become obsolete. Next, we're just going to draw that nice straight line and then join it in with a soft curve as we hit that point by the knee. And there we have it, a nice simple shape. We brought it in at the knee and we've just extended the hem out by 7 centimetres. Let's create our pattern piece now, adding our seam allowances in the same way we did for our front. Let's start off at the waist by drawing in our waistline and our darts. Same as the front, we're not adding a seam allowance at this point. Let's add our seam allowance to our centre back line and around the crotch. Carefully trace around the side seam, the inner seam of the leg with that new shape that we've got. And straight across that nice neat hemline. And right back up on the outer side, using our 1.5 centimetre seam allowance. Add your notches in the same place as you did for your front, which for me was the knee and the hip line up here. Grain line runs perpendicular to the knee, the crotch and the hip line. And this is the flared trousers, back trouser cut 2. Excellent. Cut that out now, cut it out to calico, and then we'll sew it up to see what it actually looks like when it's on. Okay, what we're going to do now is sew up the darts to start off with on all of our pattern pieces. Now, if you're not sure how to do this, then you can just refer back to video 97 where I show you how to sew up the block for the trousers. And that has like detailed sewing instructions on how to sew darts. But we're just going to sew up our 2 darts on our back and on each pattern piece, and then also the 1 dart on the front of each of the trouser pattern pieces on the front. Okay, so I've got the left leg here, the back of the leg on the screen facing up. That's the right side facing up. I'm going to put the left front leg on top of it, so I've got the front and the back together now with right sides together, and I'm just going to pin the side seam together. Now let's remember that at the hip point up here, we don't want to sew past the hip point, and the reason we don't want to do that is because we want to put the zip on the left hand side of the garment, just as we're doing a quick toile. It's also easier to pin it in on the side rather than at the back if you're pinning by yourself at home. So lots of good reasons to not sew all the way up to the hip. It's very easy to forget to do that actually. And once you've pinned the outer side seam, just going to pin the inner side seam at the same time so we can sew both of those together. I'm going to line up the notches and the top and the hem to start off with, and then just pin in between. Wonderful. Once you've pinned both sides, we're just going to sew it together using our standard 1.5 centimetre seam allowance. And then once you've sewn both those seams, you can either press them open or press them towards the back. And then we're just going to do the same process for the right leg. Okay, so we've sewn our 2 legs now and pressed open the seams. We're now just going to grab one of the legs and turn it right side out. And then I'm just going to put this leg into that one so the right sides are together. And then very simply, we're just going to pin that crotch seam together so the right sides are together, and we're pinning the front together, lining up the notches and the inner leg seam, and then the back pattern piece. Lovely. Okay, so we've now pinned all the way around there. I'm just going to sew that in place. Wow, these are looking fun, aren't they? Look at that flare. Okay, so we're just going to press that seam to one side and then let's go and see what it looks like. So here are the flared trousers, looking really nice, loads of volume down at the bottom and just nicely fitted in at the knee. So I hope you found that really helpful as we've gone through the whole process of creating this beautiful little flared trouser design. Obviously at home you've now got the skills to take that away. You could do a panelled flare trouser, you could do all sorts of different things with this design. You could increase and decrease the width of the flare at the bottom to create real drama or just a nice little subtle nod to that design aesthetic. So I can't wait to see what you guys are going to make at home. Please do share your makes on our Minerva website, where you can upload photos of your makes and share with our maker community there all the exciting things that you're designing. I would absolutely love to see what you're making there. Don't forget that you can create a free account on our Minerva website where you can create your own profile and follow and see what other people are making using the patterns and products available on our website. Really nice, useful and friendly resource on there for you to be inspired by. So thank you for joining me today. I've been Izzy at Minerva. I will see you next week as we continue this mini series looking at trousers.